Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome back to another episode of Can We Discuss with Yara and Petra and a very special guest today.
Today, we're joined by Katy, who is the founder of Luna Daily, a body care brand for women. It stands for so much more than that, though, Katy. So I'm going to pass it right back over to you so you can tell us a little bit about Luna Daily and what it really means in the beauty space.
Well, it's lovely to be here. So thank you so much for having me. I know it's been a journey for us to find all the times that work. So it's such a pleasure to be here. Well, to tell you a bit more about Luna Daily, well, we are a body care brand and we cater for women of all ages, stages, and skin types. But to tell you about Luna Daily, I sort of need to tell you the backstory and my own personal story that, you know, was my journey to setting up Luna Daily. And my journey started when I was 19 after a really intensive course of antibiotics that completely wrecked my microbiome. My skin, my gut, I had all sorts of microbiome health problems. And for me, from that moment onwards, I wasn't able to use traditional body care products to care for my now really sensitive skin, including my more intimate skin areas. Body washes, oils, soaps. But I really resented that I had to resort to these categories that typically you'd buy in the pharmacy. They're fairly niche use, they're very synthetic, they're not enjoyable to shop, they're rather embarrassing to shop. And ever since then, I felt like there's an underserving opportunity, and I suppose this category for women and people with vulvas. And if you fast forward 15 years and a career in the beauty wellness industry, I could see that not a lot had changed. And so I quit my job in the pandemic to set out to create Luna Daily. And so our strapline is head, vulva, knees, and toes. And we are.
I have to say, that's literally one of my favorite taglines for a brand that I've heard in a minute. Like, I love that for you. It's so good. It resonates so well, I think, with all of us. It taps on something so simple, something that we've all been like exposed to our entire lives, but really gives it that modern twist, that empowering twist for women as well, that I had to jump in and say I loved it.
No apology needed. Thanks. Yeah, that was the purpose of that. Luna Daily makes body care for everywhere, and that is for all body parts, including the ones that we didn't really talk about growing up. We weren't really taught about, and are often overlooked. And so the idea behind head, vulva, knees, and toes is meant to be that play on words. This nursery rhyme that we were all taught, and sort of identifying that for me, this one body part or all of our body parts should be thought of as inclusive. But also, it kind of hits a point around the conversation that I'm trying to change. And so, yes, we create beautiful microbiome balancing body care products for all body parts and all ages and stages. But I'm also really passionate about trying to normalize the conversation because unfortunately, that hasn't been happening either.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And I think why both our brands, like with Can We Discuss and Luna Daily, like when you reached out, it felt like such a natural fit because for us, it was also about normalizing conversations between like sisters, but also between friends and family and communities as well that really sometimes take a back seat. And sometimes you feel like maybe we shouldn't be talking about this. Like it needs to be a little bit like hush hush. And so when you reached out, like it was something that automatically resonated with us and learning about the brand and now like utilizing the products and using them, like just really like the brand is just one that resonates very easily with us. Tell me something like when you started, when you were thinking about building such a incredible brand, it was still like a sensitive topic, right, to take
Yeah.
on. And it really feels like it takes courage almost to take that step and, you know, create such a bold brand. What were there like any initial hesitations or challenges that you faced?
So many, so many. I think the first thing is that I've had this idea since I was 19 and I sat on it for 15 years. I didn't actually quit my job until just before I was 30. And at the time, I was global head of brand at Charlotte Tilbury, the big makeup skincare brand.
Yeah.
And about a year before I actually quit, I'd you know, I started doing the like evenings and weekends, sort of really building out this idea I'd had, and like really thinking, look, I think I'm going to give this a go. But it wasn't actually until the pandemic hit that I actually quit my job. And so you could say the first barrier was actually my own lack of belief, not lack of belief, but I think, you know, putting off and right timing, you're always making excuses to why it's not the right time to do something. And actually, for me, the pandemic, it's amazing because around now is half a decade since the pandemic began, which when I realized that, I was blown away because in my head, it was, you know, only a couple of years ago, but it was half a decade ago now. And really, it took me, you know, 15 years and the pandemic to really have the courage to go, you know what? There's a bigger risk that I wake up one day with regret not going and giving this a go than there is of giving this a go and it failing. So I think my first barrier was myself. Although I can look back and go, actually, those jobs I had and my experience and my career have been so important to launching the brand. But also, I think for lots of startups, timing is really important, and there is luck involved in right timing, but also the macroeconomic, you know, macro climate. And I think to your point, Petra, I think had I launched Loon Daily even a few years earlier, I think it would have been too soon. You know, I launched Loon Daily at a time where we were thinking more holistically about our health and our whole bodies more than ever because of the pandemic. We were thinking about hygiene a lot more and overall wellness, you know, including things like your microbiome health, your full body health, your intimate health. And so the timing of when I ended up deciding to actually launch the brand played a huge part. I think we'll probably come on to it, but I think the other biggest barrier is investment. And I won't be the first or last, I'm sure, female founder to come on the podcast and say this, that it's a huge barrier. And, you know, we have now successfully raised investment 3 times. But I could spend a whole podcast talking about the barrier to entry based on investment alone.
On investments, of course, yeah.
That is, for me, I think, like, you know, we had a founder of an application in Dubai on the podcast as well, and he was talking about that too. And I think it's so important to talk about it. And I actually, if you don't mind giving us, like, you know, just the top 3 tips, I think, because as well, like, as women, sometimes finances can be like a scary thing. Like, we think it is a very male dominated world at the end of the day, and so sometimes you kind of shy away from having that, or, like, you know, being the person up front who is kind of doing the fundraising in the back end. How did you feel walking into those rooms, and what was your approach there?
And it's not only just about being woman and raising this, it's about raising funds for a woman-powered brand in an industry that is very saturated to a certain degree, right? There's a desirability to the product, but it's still a very saturated market in general. So I think
Yeah.
that is key to actually what you would want
Yeah.
to launch or achieve.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is objectively check the world needs your product or idea. That, and I don't mean by that friends and family who might not be truthful with you, and I don't mean your own opinion, because, you know, as a founder, you have to drink your own Kool-Aid. You have to have unwavering belief in your idea, but objectively check the world needs this product. You know, in a world where there is more saturation than ever, there are more brands and products being launched. This doesn't have to be expensive, but do some independent research. And in the early days for me, that was, you know, Survey Monkeys that I delivered out, you know, group WhatsApp chats. I asked every girl I knew in your group WhatsApps that you have with other girls, post this and pass it along. And that was how we ended up getting, you know, 1,000 responses to our first piece of research. And, you know, use that to qualify that it's a good idea and the world needs your idea. Because whether or not you're a woman or not, whatever, you know, that is really important. I think the second thing is learn the game of fundraising if that's the route you're going down. Learn the other routes available to you that aren't traditional fundraising. And fundraising you can have in the form of loans or in the form of debt, in the form of equity. And then if it is equity, which is when people talk about fundraising, and particularly the stat around the lack of fundraising for women, the stat is that less than 2% of venture capital funding goes to women. Learn the game. And I say the game because I put it in the same category as mortgages and politics. Like, we're not taught at school, and then you become an adult, and you're just meant to understand and be able to coherently talk, eloquently talk about these topics that we weren't taught about at school. And so you have to learn. And if no one around you has done it before, who do you learn from? And so for me, it was finding finding and meeting a few people that were ahead of me in the journey, whether that was 6 months or 2 years ahead of me, and really learning from them. So that you could go into these conversations feeling really confident in the language you're talking, which for me, when I first fundraised, was a totally new language I'd never spoken before.
Yeah.
And I think the final thing is remembering or realizing that fundraising investment is a two-way street, and that means really the money is the least important thing, because you are making a bed with people that you are going to work with for years. And there's lots of money out there, but having the right money, and more importantly the right people that invest in you, is more important than cash alone. And that's, I think, the most important decision when choosing where your funding comes from.
I love that. I think that that's so true. Like, it's so easy to kind of try to just go to the highest bidder, or go to the person who you feel like, if I go to you again, or once or twice or three times, you're still going to be able to satisfy those financial needs. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's important to be looking at the people behind the cash, right? And really understanding, like, do these people align with my values? Do they align with the brand values? Do they really understand what I'm trying to do here, right?
Yeah.
Versus, are they just a bank, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I love the personal story behind the why. What I want to dive into a little bit right now is some of the products, okay? And more so like
Before we
product
dive into
development.
the products, though, I have a really curious question. How did
Okay.
you come up with the name Luna?
Oh, yes.
Great
Yep.
question. Great question. So the word lunar in lots of languages translates as the moon.
Yes.
And the moon is this visibly reassuring yet beautiful daily presence that connects all women wherever you are on earth. It doesn't matter what age, what background, where you're located, it connects us all. And it is this beautiful cyclical presence that's, visibly reassuring yet also connecting. But
Yes.
also, I see Luna Daily as a brand that is shining a light on topics that for so long have been kept in the dark. So that's where the name comes from.
I love
I
that.
love
See, that's how you understand that there's a true story behind the brand. That it's not just, it doesn't connect with you on a personal level only. Even the brand
Yeah.
name means something that's valuable. That's
Yeah.
great. That's a great
I
story,
love
actually.
that. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I think I read that as well on the website, and it was just such a beautiful moment for you to really like loop back to the, again, like what Yara's saying is like really the mission behind the brand.
Yeah.
So I love that. And now we can dive into the products. Even though, like, I know that Luna Daily is so much more than just products, but I want to understand, like, how do the products specifically address common concerns and empower people to feel confident and comfortable in their bodies, but also in their purchases? Because for
Yeah.
me, like, I'll preface this to say, like, I remember when you hit an age that you're like, okay, now you have to start going to see your gynecologist, and you started to have to learn about like finding products that are specific to like your sensitive areas or for the vulva. And it's just like, was a very like confusing process. And I think
Yeah.
now that I have a product that I'm comfortable using all over my body, and it's not like for a specific part of my body, it just kind of like simplifies it a lot for me, you know?
Yeah. 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 Well, I'll talk about the sort of launch range, and then I'll talk a little bit about where we've then grown. But if I
Yeah.
go back to the launch range, my own insight was, I couldn't use traditional body care products. I'm talking here like highly fragranced, quite high levels of actives, often really beautiful products that smelt amazing. But ultimately, I couldn't use them. My skin was too sensitive. And I'm talking here both my general skin and also where my skin is more intimate. But I really resented that I had to resort to these, not just this category of products, but also it got me questioning, why do we even have separate products for, our vulvas, as an example? And why are we so confused about this body part? And why are we so embarrassed about this body part? And when I dug a little deeper, for example, the skin on our vulvas is very similar to the skin under our arms. And you actually don't need specific products for your intimate skin. It's just that because it's a more sensitive region, women often is where problems show up versus other areas of your body. But if
Yeah.
you think about the microbiome of your skin. So if you remember the pH scale from school, and so water is in the middle, and you have really acidic things on the left in kind of orange red, and alkaline products far right, so that deep purple blue. If we think about the microbiome of our skin is slightly acidic, so it's pH 4 to 5. And it's really important that the skin stays within this healthy pH, because that's what's needed for bacteria to thrive. So good bacteria to thrive. And when the good bacteria on the skin are thriving, what that means is they're protecting the skin barrier. And your skin is your biggest organ. And so it's really important that that's healthy. If it's not healthy, it's likely you've got things like dryness, redness, flakiness, itchiness, or things like psoriasis or eczema. And when I say that, everybody's like, sorry, me, like all of us. But often that can be a sign that your microbiome is out of kilter. For context, most shampoos are between pH 8 to 10. Soap, so the most common ingredient in body washes and soap, is pH 12, and bleach is pH 13. And so, if we even just forget products for intimate skin or not, lots of women are using body products that are causing damage to their skin barrier. And we'd probably be a lot better off using microbiome balancing products all over our body, let alone in just our intimate skin. And so, with the launch range, what I wanted to do was marry taking the best bits of body care, so beautiful formulas that have been clinically tested, developed with our medical experts, with the efficacy of products that we really need to work. And so it's sort of a tension between products you really enjoy using that are beautiful, that you're not ashamed to have out. They look great on the bathroom shelf or in your bathroom cupboard, not hidden in the bathroom cupboard, but paired with products you really trust. Exactly. And it was really thinking about what wouldn't be in the products. And so we created a bespoke base formulation called Thermobiome Plus, which is a combination of prebiotics, vitamins, and thermal water, but also really considered what we wouldn't put in the products. I think the second thing around the launch range I considered is different format. And so really understanding that women needed products for different life stages, for different use occasions, whether that's at home or on the go.
Yeah. I sorry to interrupt, but I was gonna say
I
like
knew you were going to.
I was gonna say you preempted it, but what I was gonna say was something that I read as well on the website was through all stages of womanhood, and I think that that's so beautiful and resonates so well because it's just such a simple way to say, like whatever life stage you're going through, whatever changes your body is going through, your hormones are going through, like we're here for you as a brand, and these
Yeah.
are the products that you need to look at.
Yeah, and it's also because there are so many moments in women's lives that is unique to women or people with vulvas, or people that experience the symptoms of womanhood. And it's very unique because we have cycles that run daily, monthly, or through decades. And there are lots of different entry points where women might need different products, whether that is the changes you experience when you go through puberty and you become, a woman, and the routines that change. That's often bath time with parents to showering on your own, through motherhood, all the way to menopause. And what I really found is that the same lack of great products, but also the lack of conversation and education was happening at every life stage. And what was often happening is that women were approaching these life stages and being thrust a set of brands that alienated them, that didn't resonate with them. And my vision for Loon Daily is that she can stay with us through every life stage. And so she starts interacting with Luna Daily when she becomes a woman. Then we have ranges to cater for her through motherhood and menopause, but also hopefully that help start a conversation between ages and stages, because 51% of the population has a vulva. Most of those people will go through the menopause. But I didn't ask my mum about the menopause until a few years ago, or I didn't even know the symptoms of it. And it's bonkers. Like, I'm going to go through it. We're all going to go through it. And trying to normalize that conversation is as important as, providing great products for women at those life stages.
So it's not about only the products that are behind Luna, right? It's really all about the drive and the story that comes with the different stages of life. So it's really not about, it's you trying to tell people you have to talk about these things, you have to be open. It's only natural. So yes, there are products to talk about or to start these conversations, but there's also products that you can actually use that would be beneficial to you. not just conversation starters that can change the way that you look at your body as a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important to have these conversations. And you touched on something with menopause, Katie. Like, there's also the reality that a lot of women, menopause happens for them a lot earlier, for example, at much younger ages. And we aren't really exposed to that like growing up. We always think like once you hit a certain age, that's when you start to go through it. And it's not true. Like a woman's body is so unique, like you said, and goes through experiences that are very unique to women. And so it's very beautiful, I think, that you were able to kind of bridge the gap between the different life stages as well with all of these products. So you recently launched Luna Daily in the Middle East. And the Middle Eastern culture is a little bit of a unique one. We can categorize it as unique, you know? What were some of the unique considerations? And you can find Luna Daily, by the way, in Sephora, specifically in the Middle East, guys. Um, but while you were launching, like, what were some of the unique considerations that you took into account before entering the Middle Eastern market? This is, like we said, like globally a sensitive topic. So, did it hit
Yeah.
you that like how am I going to tackle this like in the Middle East specifically?
Yeah, great question. So I think first of all, I have lots of experience of living in the Middle Eastern culture. So when I was at Charlotte Tilbury, one of my jobs was to launch Charlotte Tilbury across the Middle East region. So I spent lots of time there. My now husband, is from the Middle East. Hence, actually, wedding present from my father-in-law.
I was gonna
So
say I see
I've
Arabic there, and I'm not a stalker, but I follow you on your personal account, obviously. And so I saw that you and Sami, is it Sami? You
yeah,
recently
yeah,
um also celebrated your 5-year wedding anniversary. So
yeah.
congratulations. But I saw his tag and I was like, oh wait.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So we've personally spent lots of time there, and professionally, I launched, brands into the region. And actually, it was during the pandemic when I was working on Luna Daily that we lived in the Middle East for quite some time. Partly we got stuck there during a pandemic, and then partly we chose to live there because, let's be honest, being in the sun with better restrictions than the UK was a no-brainer. So I think that the first thing was I knew that there was a huge opportunity because on the one hand, I saw so many Middle Eastern women go to Sephora, go to shopping malls, love beauty, love the products they're using. And that's not just cosmetics, skincare, hair care, body care. The Middle Eastern woman is so engaged in beauty. But then I also saw her shopping in pharmacy. There are obviously so many pharmacies across the Middle East, small pharmacy chains that are a big part of Middle Eastern culture and shopping. But the second thing is the climate. So we have to talk about the product that is our number one seller and has become in the Middle East. So I'll just explain the product because it is quite unique. So this is based like a shower in a bottle, and all those times Petra's already got hers. So it comes in two sizes. You've got the larger one.
You have the shop.
All those times that you are on the go and you don't have access to a shower and you don't want to use a wet wipe, you simply spray it onto skin or onto a piece of tissue and wipe, and it transforms it into an instant flushable wipe. And this one bottle is the equivalent to 100 single use wipes. And the reason I reference this product is that if you think about the weather in the Middle East. So whenever I've been, I've said to customers, describe the weather for me, and everyone's like, it's hot, it's sticky, it's clammy. And then everyone also says, and we're a culture of like, we're always on the move, we're always really busy, we're always doing stuff, we're rushing between stuff, particularly women. And so if you think about what's this used for, the things I use it most for is I spray it onto my hands, particularly after being in public areas, and because hand sanitizer is really drying. It's great for kids' sticky hands, so lots of mums love it. But I also use it under my arms. I use it on my face to cool down. I use it if I'm on my period or going to the toilet. And most of those use cases are not really embarrassing. Well, they are to some people, but they're just very normal. And so actually, is in simplest terms, it's a body cleansing spray. And I think if we think beyond the normalization of certain topics, that as a functionality of a product wrapped up in this like beautiful packaging that's really aesthetic, a really accessible price point, is everything the Middle Eastern woman is looking for. And then you overlay that it's in Sephora, where it's like the mecca that she's going to anyway. And so I think there definitely were some considerations around language. And I think for me, what I mean by normalizing a conversation doesn't mean being really super activistic as a brand, or being really
Oh, yeah.
negative and sort of like boo-hoo, it's been awful for so long. For me, what it means is that you might listen to this podcast and it might spur you to have a chat with your best friend or with your sister or with your mum. And that is the same globally. And so there is a nuance around language and being respectful and consideration about where somebody is on the scale of normalization of a conversation.
Yeah.
But I've also found Middle Eastern women to be so progressive and really ready for it, if I'm honest. And I was amazed at when I was over last month for the launch, how open women were to Balloon Daily as a brand. But I think also the missed opportunity, like the amount of pregnant or new mums I met who said, like, there is nothing for me at this life stage. You know, most of the changes that happened to me happened to my body, and whether that's boobs, bellies, butts, nipples, you know, scars, stretch marks. And the fact that there hasn't been brands to cater for that until Luna Daily, I think, is what really connects them with the brand.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, in the Middle East, I think women within the beauty industry or skincare and body care industry as a whole, women are very open because
Yeah,
beauty is something that's been very embedded within the culture in the Middle East, regardless of where you're from, be it from the
yeah,
Gulf, be it from North Africa, be it from the Levant, it's the same, right? And the fact that people here are more willing to have these conversations because it's such an important topic to them,
yeah,
I think is also something that's very, very big. I
yeah,
think people acknowledge that, yes, there are a lot of pharmaceutical brands out there that might be able to
yeah,
help, but there aren't any products, like you said, that are within the beauty industry or beauty driven that have natural ingredients that are able to help support a woman regardless of the stage of life that she is in
yeah,
or her needs as well. And the
yeah,
women in the Middle East, and this is what I've seen, right? I am a woman from the Middle East. I've lived here for the majority of my life, but at least I've seen that women do discuss a lot of these things. People
yeah,
think that the Middle Eastern woman does not talk about these things, but women among each other do actually have these conversations.
yeah,
They're very open to having these conversations and to really learning and understanding how products can be different for them, or how these
yeah,
products can actually impact their lives as well.
yeah,
Yeah. No, I think it's what you said as well earlier in terms of timing, right? And launching a brand at the right time. I think the Middle East, like you said, there's a lot of untapped potential. And it's great that you were able to also see that. And it's nice to see that people who are coming in and launching businesses are able to recognize kind of this change in perspective, and that Middle Eastern women are actually beautiful modern women that are able to have these conversations and able to enjoy products like women do all around the world. This product is really, really great. That's the same product that you're carrying, but you were carrying the travel version. And guys, like, this is not an ad, but I have to say, like, I'm obsessed with this product. And this is a product that I really just like never knew I missed. Like, I'm on my period right now and I'm using it all the time. And I think it's just so refreshing. And even after a workout, sometimes I need to rush to the grocery store and I don't really have time to shower before, and it just makes me feel so much more confident. Like, that's what I love about it, is that it's just like little confidence in a bottle, which is crazy, but
I love that line, confidence in a bottle.
yeah, it really 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 is though, because it helped me so much. Like, I don't feel icky and gross after. I don't feel like, I don't know, I just step out after using it and I'm like, ah, like, I feel so good. I
Fresh.
feel so refreshed now. And then Yada's using the oil now as well, right? Yada, you're using
Yeah,
the,
wait, let me grab the oil.
is it
I
from
love
the
this
mother
oil.
is it from the
It's
motherhood line as well that you're
So that's
using?
the cool thing. No, so that's the cool thing. It's not about only like motherhood or whatever. You can use it for whatever, any stage in your life. And this
True.
is just skin support oil. It's not
Yeah,
really, it's about everything. It's bellies, boobs, butts. So you can use it for stretch marks, I'm honestly using it for a scar that I have on my knee right now, and it's really
yeah,
helpful. So it's
yeah.
not about you being in like a motherhood stage or whatever.
Yeah.
It's for
No, and
daily
exactly, Yara. And
actual
if
daily.
you it was just that, women wanted like a really beautiful lightweight body oil they can use all over their body.
Yeah.
And that, yes, for things like stretch marks, hyperpigmentation, scarring, bruising, but all of the options that existed were either sort of really gross packaging and or branding and products that were really heavy. They take ages to dry, they don't smell very nice, and haven't got particularly good efficacy when you look at, you know, the category of products available. And
Yeah.
so the idea was, yeah, every age and stage, you know, most women will have some form of stretch mark, scar, hyperpigmentation, or just dry skin.
It says that it's the skin support oil, and it's absolutely a skin support oil. Like, I went a couple of days, I was really sick, so I went a couple of days without applying it on my body. And afterwards, I'm like, okay, no, I really need this. I need this all over. I need this on my boobs. I need this on my butt. I've been sleeping and sitting on my butt all day. I really need this.
I think that has to be my next purchase from Luna Daily, then, is the oil. I'm convinced. But I think I'm in marketing. Okay. So I need to talk a little bit about your marketing strategy here. And this is just out of my personal curiosity. I love the way that you're handling like your social media, the message that you're putting out there. I really believe in like the role that brands play when it comes to normalizing conversations, inclusivity. So, how do you see your role as a woman and a female founder for a brand when it comes to discussing or challenging traditional beauty standards and embracing your body?
So I think I can answer that in two ways. The first is, you know, I'm the founder and I'm the face of Luna Daily. And Luna Daily has always been born out of my own personal experiences and my own personal story. And so I think because of that, it's really important that I have that conversation and I'm open about it. And I find that anytime I tell my story, it sparks another conversation. Someone will either go, you know what, I struggle with this, or my mum this, my friend this. And it just creates a platform for encouraging and empowering other conversations. And so that's why I do it, you know, and it's to connect with different women. And that's not just on my own personal story, but it's about other things that I'm really passionate about, whether that is equality in the workforce or normalizing loads of conversations, whether that be professionally or personally. But I also really advocate for it, not just because it's my brand and because that's the authentic story behind our brand, but because I think brands have such a role to play, but particularly in the female health space. You know, if we think that school is the number one source of education for children growing up, and unfortunately, it's a failure in the education system that we are so confused, misinformed around female healthcare, around the anatomy of our bodies, around recommended daily washing routines, around topics. You know, most of us can remember possibly the tampon lady coming to school, possibly like an internal drawing of some fallopian tubes, but no, you know, no one was ever, I certainly wasn't taught the right vernacular growing up. And so if education is the number one source and there's a failure there, social media is now the number two source of education. And unfortunately, there's a big charity in the US called the Center, or charity or organization in the US called the Center for Intimacy of Justice. And of the brands they surveyed, every single brand had an ad blocked by a social media platform like Meta or one of the other platforms, despite it being, you know, not, you know, the reason that ads get blocked on Meta is because they are worried that it's harmful or it's inappropriate to people. And in all the brands' cases, these were not, you know, words or ads that were going to be harmful. And unfortunately, it's a gendered issue. You know, it's gendered towards female topics versus men. There's lots of examples of male brands and products being advertised and are not blocked. And so, in my head, if people aren't learning at school and then they're being censored stuff they need to be taught on social media, you know, where does it leave people with education? In a world where we are talking more than ever, you know, TikTok has created this platform where everybody can have a voice, but unfortunately, that can also mean there's a real echo chamber of misinformation. And so it's why I feel so passionately around using my voice and the brand's voice to try and help the conversation. And I think when we talk about community, it is not just external facing channels, that's also DMs and smaller micro communities of women that are happening, whether that is a bump and baby class of women before they give birth and partnering with them for information or for products, whether it is personal DMs of people. I get loads of DMs of people going, look, sorry, this is TMI, but can I ask for your guidance on this? And we have a medical collective that support the brands if anything is medical related. And it's amazing that for me, community is then the number one thing is it's a two-way relationship, and it's not just brands putting out stuff. It's actually like, what are you also giving to your community?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to always be vanity public. It can be so many private, or one-on-one or small group conversations that are happening. But ultimately, for me, if I can inspire even just one other person that listens to this podcast to go and chat to somebody else or to message us or to read one of our resources, then I feel like that's the change we're making. And it really works. And so I'm going to keep doing it.
And Katie, have you seen that a lot of people do come up to you? It doesn't have to be like online or through, like you said, through comments or engagement that's just online, but even at the launch events that you have, or just simply through meeting you on the street, for example, or at an event that comes up to you and goes like, thank you for making sure that this is no longer a stigma or something that we should be ashamed about talking about?
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I reckon on a weekly basis, I get a message from somebody that either is they've listened to a podcast that I've been on, so we're complete strangers, and it always starts with, I know this is really weird, I'm so sorry for like the direct outreach, and I'm like, are you kidding? Or it's somebody that like I very tenuously know, like it's somebody I used to work with 10 years ago that we were never that close.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed like at the messages I get of just like, there'll always be a personal thing of like my daughter this or my mum this, but just like the gratitude for bringing the brand into the world. And I have to be honest that when I launched the brand, I was a bit nervous of being so personal. And I was like, wait a second, if I can't even be honest about my own story, how can I expect other people to be?
Yeah.
And now I am proof that if you normalize conversations, they no longer become embarrassing. I'm now not embarrassed. It's just gone. I'm like free of it. And I used to be so embarrassed growing up with all my problems. And so now I'm like, I'm proof that it just becomes not embarrassing anymore, not taboo.
Yeah, I love that. And you're so right. Like when you are launching a brand, it's so important for you as the founder to fully embody it and to really, practice what you preach. And I think for me, on a personal level, that resonates so well with like, I grew up in Saudi Arabia, and in our day in Saudi Arabia, like it was a much different conversation than what
Yeah,
we're
of
having
course.
now.
Yeah.
But I was always like that outspoken girl and the girl that was talking about all of the back then deemed inappropriate topics, or
Yeah.
taboo topics. So I love being in a world today where those conversations are never, shut down. They're embraced. And I love the role that Luna Daily plays in that conversation as well. I think it's so important what you're doing, Katie. We really just like loved having you on the podcast and loved hearing your story. Before we kind of close this out, we did open up a Q&A to the audience on Instagram. So I picked 3 top questions that I want to ask you. So
Great.
we'll dive right into the first one. The first one resonates really well with today because of a very special launch that's happening today. But what are the future expansion plans for Luna Daily, from distribution to new product development?
Great question, whoever sent that one. And so the first in terms of distribution, so today you can find Luna Daily at our own website, so lunadaily.com, but also in, I think, the best retailers in the world. So Sephora in the Middle East, in the US, in the UK, Boots, Cult Beauty, for example. And so you'll continue to find Luna Daily in those amazing retail locations or by shopping with us direct. From a product development perspective, and I will give you a reveal of the new product, I suppose our North Star is to cater for all ages and stages through every stage of womanhood. From when she gets her first period through pregnancy all the way up to menopause. And I still see so many white space opportunities of underserving categories when I think about those life stages for women. And so ultimately, I want to be the brand that women choose at every life stage, but also that stays with her through those life stages. But if I think about white space opportunities, I'll tell you about our new launch. So these are our new launch.
I
So
love
I'll tell you the insight behind them. So
Yes.
it's called the all over deodorant,
Okay.
and so they are all natural, aluminium free deodorants that you can use all over your body. And I'll tell you my kind of two insights, personal insights behind this product. So the first is I've tried to make the switch to natural deodorant. I want to. Like, I have really sensitive skin. When I looked on the back of the, I used to use a really strong men's deodorant, like very synthetic, like actually really scary ingredients. But every time I've tried natural deodorants, they just haven't worked for me. Like,
Mhm.
I still smell. uh, but also, aside from that, they are quite powdery formulas that either stain my white clothes yellow, or if you've ever put a tight black t-shirt on, you get like white marks all over, and they just haven't worked for me. On the other hand, you have this like synthetic deodorant category that's existed for so long that is so bad. Like, the ingredients, if you look on the back of synthetic deodorant, they're actually quite scary when you Google what's in them. And then the second gripe I've had is that, like, who said we just put deodorant under our arms? Like, the body has 2 to 4 million sweat glands, and well, certainly me and lots of other women sweat everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
yes, under your arms,
You
but
sweat here
also,
too. You sweat.
Um,
yeah,
my my
yeah,
my boobs, I have a big chest and my boobs sweat. Like
yeah,
I sweat,
yeah,
it's the reality. And I need to spray it everywhere. And when I'm working out, I literally like to spray it all over my body because I just
yeah,
think I don't want to smell.
yeah,
So
exactly.
it's
And
even more
actually,
important. Yeah.
yeah, anywhere that you've got skin meeting, whether that's, underarms, under boobs, that bit, your lower back, that bit on the back of your neck that your hair always touches, in between your legs. Not only do we sweat, but also you get chafing and uncomfort.
Oh yeah.
But you certainly wouldn't want to use a synthetic deodorant on other body parts. And so that was the idea behind the all over deodorants. And so, as well as being natural aluminium free, they're quite a unique gel like texture. So, you can see here, they're sort of like they glide on really easily. So, they're not at all sort of powdery, but then it dries really quickly. Uh, there's three hero ingredients. So we have two patented green molecules called Syndeo and Deoplex
Okay.
that absorb sweat but also reduce odor by actually inhibiting the activity of odor causing bacteria. We also have prebiotics like the rest of the Loon Daily range to help support healthy microbiome, and hyaluronic acid, which is brilliant. It holds like 1,000 times its weight in water. And so it's an example of product innovation that was born out of personal frustration with both synthetic and the natural deo category, but also just feeling like it was underserving, whilst also trying to marry that with, like, why is it that deodorants have to be really functional and not really enjoyable to use? And so, like, in the packaging design, like, they're meant to feel like really enjoyable to use
Yeah.
as well. And so, an example of the type of category you'll see Luna Daily expand into. So, they're coming to the Middle East in a couple of months. Watch
That's
this
so
space.
Are
that's
they
so
in? They're
exciting.
in the UK and in the US already. They've
They're in the
launched.
UK and the US, so they look, yeah, from today,
Okay.
and then Middle East.
Amazing.
Give us a couple of months to get it over there.
I'll get a bunch for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'll
it's such a great gift. Like now, I really enjoy gifting. So the oil itself, at least, I've already given it to three other people.
Oh,
So I think it's really
cute.
cool to gift these kind of things as well. I don't know. Maybe it's
Yeah.
just me because I love the product or I love this category in general, but I just love gifting it as well.
Yeah, it's so true. It does make for such a pretty gift. And I'm excited to try this deodorant. I'm gonna get my hands on it before you, Yada, so I'll keep you posted as well. But I'm really excited. I'll bring you some. Actually, I can bring you some with me over the summer, which would be
But I'm
great.
going to the UK mid-April. That's what I get my
Oh,
hands
oh,
on.
oh.
Oh, maybe Yara's gonna get it first.
Yada's gonna get it. Yeah. Okay, that was super interesting. I'm so excited to see like where you go in the world, but also like what you give us in terms of the next product. So I'm really excited about that. Another question that we got is, what's the one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Um, don't rush. I think we grow up rushing and wanting to progress in our careers and progress in our lives, like whether that is like what's the next job, what's the next career move, or what's the next like life step that like confirms success, whether that is finding a boyfriend or getting engaged or getting married or having a baby. And don't rush. Like, if kids that are born today, there is a 51% chance they'll live to 100. And that means, we're a third of the way through. And life is so short, but also goes by so quickly. And I think I would have told her, don't rush. Like, don't wish it. Not that I ever wished it away, but I definitely had this sort of like wanting to get. And I think you get to a certain age where you're like, whoa, 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 slow down. No, no, no. I don't. And I think telling my younger self to just like, don't rush and enjoy being the age and the stage that you're at.
I think that's such an important message, especially in today's world, because we're programmed to rush, right? Like
Yeah.
all of the technology is programmed to not allow us to live a nice,
Yeah.
relaxing, slow
And we're
paced life.
programmed to measure our success
Yeah.
against the different milestones
Yeah.
that the world puts out for us. So telling yourself,
Exactly.
taking a minute to say, in the grander scheme of things, it's not going to make that much of a difference. So give yourself
Yeah.
that time is amazing.
Yeah. Every Friday, it's a work thing, but I would so recommend it personally. Every Friday, before we finish off for the weekend, I just send the like three amazing things that happened that week in Slack, because Slack is like a little time machine, not time machine,
Yeah.
but like time
Capsule.
hub
Yeah.
capsule. Yeah. Because also it's so quick that, like, particularly in Loon Daily's life, like everything happens so quickly and we move on to the next thing so quickly that it's just to stop and like take a moment to reflect. And then every 6 months when I flick back through, I'm like, oh my goodness, we've achieved so much. But if you don't write it down, you're too quick to move on to the next thing.
That's so
True.
true. I love that you do that. I also, this is really creepy, but like you posted one time your calendar on your story,
Oh
and
yeah, that was amazing.
I
That's not a good example, by the way, of how you should live your life.
I know. But I spotted something in there that does kind of, um, you know, mimic what you're saying right now about not rushing. And it was something about like, you had time blocks with the team. I forget what you call it, where you kind of like, was it like slowing down or unwinding or something like that, that you
Stay
had
spirited, it's called. Yeah. So it's
stay
one of our four values. Yeah.
spirited. Yes.
Yeah.
You had time blocks for that. Stay spirited with your team. And I was like, how do we join the Daily team? Like, I think that's such a cool initiative to have. Can you tell us, like, out of my curiosity, we're interrupting our Q&A session, but like,
No, that's
what
fine.
does that mean
Um,
to you?
so yeah, so I think when I launched Luna Daily, I made a commitment that I would only do it if myself and the people around me were the happiest, healthiest they've ever been. And I'd experienced burnout myself from previous roles. But if you also see the stats around startup life and mental health, they're pretty horrific. 87% of people say that working in a startup has negatively impacted their mental health. And I think it's that 84% say they've experienced burnout. And so from the beginning, I just made a commitment that I wasn't going to do it. It wasn't worth it. It doesn't matter how big our vision is, our mission is. It doesn't matter if I'm not healthy and happy and the people around me aren't either. And so that is kind of at my very core, that like the most important part of my job as CEO is my people. Like they are the most important thing to me. And that's people that work at Luna Daily and people that we work with. And we're all old enough, like we've all worked long enough to be like, I want to work with people that I really enjoy working with. And it's a pleasure to be around. But also, really importantly, most of us spend more time working than anything else. And we probably see our work friends more than our closest family and friends. And therefore, from a mental health perspective, your colleagues are probably really well placed to spot if something's not right. But also, I think the workplace has a real opportunity to foster positive mental health. And so, that as a framework of how do I create the best working environment for everyone at Luna Daily runs through everything we do. And so, whether that is stay spirited. So, I think on that day, we had team toasties, like making toasty sandwiches and going for the walk in the park. And we had team speed dating, which is where we give each other feedback. But all the way through to how we've shaped our women's health policy, to support not just through like maternity leave, but through endometriosis, miscarriage, all the way up to, egg freezing, menopause. And my team have really helped shape the culture of Luna Daily. So yeah, it absolutely has to come top down as a leader, but it also has to come through and be, whenever we interview somebody, like for me, the most important thing is do they embody like our team culture and spirits? Because there's lots you can teach, aptitude over attitude, but you can't teach that. And so, yeah, that's where it comes from.
It really stood out to me, and I was like, wait, I have to ask Katy about this because that's so cool. And I know that if I was on a team like that, that would give me just so much more motivation to want to give, because when your
Yeah.
cup is full, you feel like you're able to give more, be it at work, be it at home, wherever it is in life, or whatever aspect of life it is. And so I just thought that that was such a cool thing. And I don't think, like, you didn't share it to talk about stay spirited. You were like, look at my crazy schedule. But
Yeah, by the way, the rest of that day is not I recommend how you run your life. It was stupid.
but how beautiful that you were still within such a busy schedule able to take that time and make the time for yourself, but also for your team
For
to
the
really
team.
connect and slow down a little bit during the day to recharge and kind of give yourselves that push that you might need. I think that that's just so beautiful and speaks volumes to the type of CEO and founder that you are. So kudos to you on that. Um, Back to Q&A, our last question, and I thought this was a really cool way for us to kind of end this interview with you, Katy, is if you want people to think of one thing when they think of Luna Daily, what would it be?
That I want more girls to grow up feeling like I do now, which is free from the shackles and shame of embarrassment and confusion, and less girls to grow up feeling like I did as a 19-year-old. And honestly, if even one person listening to this, it helps free them of some shame or taboo, then I feel like my work is done. And so that's what I would like people to think about.
I love that.
The fact that the brand stands for it, so it's not just you as a person, but you've made sure that the brand that you've built also stands for that and for
Yeah.
girls and women at every stage in life. I think it's a true testament to everything that you've achieved so far. You've really taken everything that, or from what I've seen, you've taken everything that you've learned from the industry in your past experience, and you've brought it to life within Luna as well. So I think it's really important, and I do see that happening more and more with the additional products that you do launch, and the fact that people do feel like they have a platform that they can go back to and talk about all of these things, I think is extremely, extremely important. And I think that's a great testament to all of the work that you've done so far and more to come, I'm sure.
Oh, well, I feel the same about you two, because when I came across your podcast and I was like, what you two are doing around normalizing all conversations, and like, can we talk about this? And when we had the briefing and you said, look, nothing is TMI, like, please, thank you both, because honestly, what you're creating with the community you're building and giving people like me a platform is so amazing.
Thank you so much for saying that, Katy. We really appreciate it, and we
You do.
loved
And we
having you today.
appreciate
I
you
can
trusting us to really tell the story of Luna Daily.
Yes,
Cool.
for sure. That is key here. And I think everything that you talked about is really going to be the key to your continued success here, and the reason why this brand is going to be in everyone's routine. I know it for sure. And they're really just going to love
Yeah.
all of the different products. And yeah, thank you so much for, like Yetta said, trusting us with, talking about your story and talking about Luna Daily. And we're just so excited to have had you today.
Thank you both. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, of
Thank you so
course.
much, Katie. Thank you so much.
Everyone, please make sure to drop any additional questions to Katy down below in the comments. And as always, we'll see you right back here in 2 weeks for another episode of Can We Discuss with Yara and Petra. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.